He joined the AAs in U.S. Minister with a friend of his, a well-known lawyer, and is sobered up. And he came back to Squamish and started up the Alcoholics Unanimous, and immediately had quite a good group there. Pat, in a sense, came from the bottom to the absolute top. From there, he just worked himself right up to the top as mayor. And I got to say one thing, and a lot of other people do, it's about the best mayor we ever had, and probably ever will have. And we were always in politics, helping who we thought would do the best job, federally and provincially. We weren't in it to get anything. That wasn't Pat's idea on anything, that underhanded stuff. He had nothing to do with that, ever. It's all above board. That's one thing about him. Everything had to be above board. Between him and the district, the provincial government, they decided they were going to dike the river and change the course so that it wouldn't come through town anymore. And Pat and his group took on that job, and they did it. And they did it for far under budget, and a very, very good job.
Well, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we first met John. Was, of course, I married his sister, so that helped, and we didn't know exactly what we wanted to do in our life. We were looking for different things to do for work and stuff. And he said, "We'll give you a job up in Squamish." I said, "What doing?" He says, "Logging." He says, "Well, log. Show you how to log." So I thought that was pretty good. So we come up to Squamish. First place he put us in was the old powerhouse down by the what was the old Red Bridge. Well, it had no insulation in it. We pretty near froze to death the first year. We had a sawdust hopper there, and it froze up. The kids, we had him sitting on the chair with his feet in the oven to try and keep him warm, and this was the house he gave us when we first come to Squamish. However, we did get up here, and he got me started logging, and I thought this was going to be an easy touch. Well, and after a couple of days in the woods, I'd come home and I could hardly walk. It was absolutely unbelievable how tough that work was to get started at. You run up and down side hills, and it got pretty tough going for a while. He's quite a guy. He was the first one to bring a grapple loader into the valley. He was the first one to bring a steel spar into the valley. I had the thing built at Burrard Dry Docks, and I gotta say it was a very, very successful thing. Where we used to take as much as 3 days from production at this site to production at that site, it was cut down to maybe 4 to 6 hours, which was quite a big item in the logging. And that was the steel spar. We used to have, with the wooden tree, a boom that swung around the tree to pick up logs to put on the trucks. There was 2 tongs involved, but I designed one with a 1 tong, which I call the heel boom. That was the heel in the tree. Then, in discussions with a salesman, he talked me into buying a mobile log loader. So I went along with him and bought a small machine and equipped it with a boom and a tong, and it worked like a charm. However, shortly after that, this grapple business came into light, which meant you didn't need any people out there to set tongs. One of the first was the sky hook. It was a machine that traveled on a pair of big cables, and you used to sit in and drive it around. There was a winch that you let down, pick up logs, and transported them. But one night, I remember
clearly it raining like hell, and the river came up high. And of course that meant high tide backed the river up. So I got all the boys in there, hoisted them up, shackled the cage to the machine, and away I go across the river. Well, unfortunately, the tide had come in and the river was up, and the cage hit the water. And if you could listen to the language that went on in that cage with water flying through there. And anyway, as soon as we got through from the low spot and the cables started up again, we were out of the river. It was actually not a dangerous thing because we just barely hit the water, maybe, but it put water right straight through the cage. We really didn't fight too much amongst ourselves. We got along very, very, very well with everybody else. CRB were the biggest, along with us. We were equal, I suppose, but we got along quite well together. Right now, it's the markets are fair. We can get by, but we're not making any great money. But things are looking a little bit better with the Chinese being a little bit interested in the species that is more or less left now.
Some of the people I used to work with, Al McIntosh, he came to Squamish probably about 5 years after I did. I knew Al pretty good guy actually. He used to work for JD, and JD, of course, you know, he was a logger, and he always was watching expenses. He didn't want to spend any nickels if he didn't have to. We were down south in Yuma, staying at this RV park, and his sister stayed there too, and he came over from where he was staying over in Palm Springs to visit. And of course we knew him pretty good, so we went over and was having a few beers with him and all. And we got talking about this and that and the other thing, and Johnny, he looked at me and I said, "You know what, John?" Well, I was the first employee at Squamish Mills. And he looked at me, and here I had a place down there and this nice camp and stuff, and he says, obviously, he says, "We paid you too much." Well, Johnny, although a lot of people had a lot of things against him, but there was a lot of people, when they got right down to it, said that Johnny was pretty good. He supplied a lot of work for a lot of people. He started out house-hound timber, and I think he had 2 or 3 or 4 trucks, logging trucks working, plus a couple of yarders working for him. And he did a lot of work in Squamish, and he wasn't nearly as tough as a lot of people thought. Not nearly as tough. He was really a good guy, and to this very day.
Yes, well, as far as my family's concerned, I used to have to go to the telephone office to phone every once in a while. At that time, there was only one phone in town, and that was in a phone office downtown there. And this young kid that was in there named Colleen, she would obviously listen to all my calls. Anyway, one night she asked me to come to a party down there, please. And I said, "Holy Christ, I'm not going to fool around with you kids." She was still going to school. But anyway, the thing there was she kept at me, and then her mother saw the potential, and she said to Colleen, "Boy, there's a good catch him." And of course, that was it. We had figured on 6 kids, but we got twins the last time. So now we have 4 girls and 3 boys.
My mother, she didn't really care for John very much, and she used to say to John, as when they used to take you to the gate and say goodnight, and she'd yell out, "John Drenka, you leave my daughter alone. You go home and leave my daughter alone." because poor John wasn't very popular around Squamish at that time. But he kept persisting and he kept persisting. He kept coming back. And finally, my mom got to really like him. So we went around for 2 years. He courted me for 2 years, and we finally got married on the 21st of June in 1947. So we went on a nice honeymoon. He took me down to San Francisco and Brookdale Lodge and down in California. And he, when we were away, he had his brother-in-law Nels build this little prefab home. So when we got back, our home was all ready to move into. And it was right on the main street, right across from, right on Cleveland Avenue. And pretty soon, we weren't there for very long before I became in the family way with Jay, our first.
They're all well, doing well. I got no complaints with any of them. They're all doing quite well, and Colleen's really happy. She spends more time with the kids than she does with me. And most of all our kids are around us now, except one in Kelowna. I gotta say that she got a good catch, but so did I.
Oh, pretty bossy. And he always wanted his own way. And he eventually got it. And but on the whole, we've been married 63 years now, and John's gotten older, and I'm looking after him more, keeping him happy, or trying to.
Another little story I'd like to tell you about was the story about the girls knitting JD a bathing suit, of all things. Well, we'd bought a motorhome and we were taking little side trips, and we stopped in at Bermuda Dunes where John and Colleen lived, and asked if they wanted to take a little side trip with us. And so we decided we were going to take a run up to Quartzsite in Arizona. So we stopped in Quartzsite, and it's quite a place. They have all these rock hounds there and one thing another. And of course, we're looking through stores and finally found a spot there with some knitting needles. So we bought 2 sets of knitting needles and some couple of colors blue wool for them to do their knitting. And in the motorhome we get, and we're on our way.
We didn't know how to really put a bathing suit, a knitted bathing suit together. So she knit the front and I knit the back. And the back was big and the front was small. So anyway, and he wanted he wanted to have a little flap at the front to hide all his things, you know. So we had to knit this little flap to go and you know, to cover him up at the front. I still have that bathing suit upstairs.
Anyway, he wasn't shy. He put it on. He was heading to the pool. Of course, when you get in the pool, the bathing suit started to sag. He was leaving where it was supposed to be and heading down to his knees. So he come out holding the thing up. So then the girls got busy and they knit a couple of straps to put on and put over his shoulder to hold it up. I'll tell you, it was something to behold.
All the years here in Squamish,